Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to be making this Christmas tree scene using some Lawn Fawn stamps and dies. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to take the Really Rainbow Christmas paper pack, the 6x6 pack, and we're going to be using the blue paper with the snowflakes on it. And we're going to use some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock in the 100-pound weight. This is a watercolor paper. We're going to take that snowflake paper and we're going to cut it to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so a standard note card size. And then we're also going to take a piece of that Bristol Smooth paper and cut it to the exact same size, so those two will line up perfectly. And then we want to make the card the exact same, so we're going to cut that to 4 1/4 by 11. And then we're going to score that at 5 1/2. So I'm using the We Are Memory Keeper scoring and cutting tool. And if you flip that panel around there, you'll get a nice edge that your paper will go up against. Your scoring tool is down at the bottom, so everything's all contained in one place. And we're going to score right at 5 1/2. So I really like this because you can cut and score without having to pull out another separate set of tools. So I'm taking my Lawn Fawn bone folder, which is a Teflon bone folder, and scoring that card. So now we have those pieces, and all we need is a piece of acetate. This is the Judykins acetate, and it's already cut to a standard note card size. And what you see on there is just a little piece of tissue paper. So what we're going to do is take the score tape, the 6x6 double-sided tape, and you'll see that's sticky on both sides. So I'm going to peel back enough to fit my, my blue paper, and I'm just going to fold it back. I'm not going to take the whole backing off because all we need is a little section of this. And it's easier to handle if you keep some of the backing on, then you don't have all that sticky in your hands. So I'm using my tonic scissors. They're titanium. It's a beautiful scissor. It doesn't stick to the paper here. It's great for mixed media or anything that's kind of sticky. And they're 9 1/2 inches long, which really makes a nice cut. So we're going to go ahead and save the rest of that. Just put that on there and save that for later. So now I want to take the outside in stitch Christmas tree stackable. I'm going to take that largest one. First, I want to remove the backing from the blue paper now, and now I have sticky on the back. And again, I'm leaving a little bit of that backing on there so I have something to hold on to. And I'm going to attach that white paper to the blue paper and pull away that excess backing, and everything's nicely positioned and put in place. So now I want to take that Christmas tree and I'm going to place it a little bit up from the bottom of this panel. Now, it will require running this through my machine several times, so I just want to make you aware of that. If you don't have a machine that you think will cut through this amount of paper, what you can do is cut the blue paper, then trace that opening onto the white cardstock, then place the die on the white cardstock and cut the white. So you could do it as two separate processes, but I wanted to do it all at once so that everything was lined up together. There you see where my purple tape was. Because I ran it through the machine so many times, I have a little bit of a leftover sticky there. So I'm just taking my little gum eraser and removing that. The next thing I want to do is put the acetate panel behind that window. And so I'm just taking the tissue paper backing off, and I'm going to put some score tape down here, the 1/8 inch score tape. And I'm just going to place that all the way around, adding a few little pieces there behind the tree, just to make sure everything stays in place. And I'm just going to peel off the backing and place that acetate down on the back. So that's going to give us our little framed window here. So the next thing I want to do is create some little snowy borders for the seam. So I have 3 different pieces of white cardstock there, and then one more for the front, which is 4¼ inches wide. And I'm just going to try to determine what the height is that I'm going to be needing. So I'm going to take my stitched hillside borders, and I'm going to take one of those stitch borders and determine where I want that to kind of fall on the front of the card. Once I determine that, I'm going to put a little strip of purple tape there to hold it in place. And then I'm going to determine the same thing for the 3. I want that first one to start about there. And I want to make sure that my cut line is on the top when I lay these on my cardstock. I have done it backwards before, so just fair warning that double check to make sure your cut line is at the top. And I'm going to position those borders, just trying to determine where that next one needs to be. This paper that I'm using here is 4¼ inches wide as well, but you'll see in a minute we're going to cut some of that away. So now I have those 3 and the front one ready to go through my machine. So I'm using my Spellbinders Platinum machine, and I'm going to go ahead and run those through. This is going to leave a nice stitch border on these, and you can see there that they stack up nicely. So now I just want to make the stitch border around the tree so that everything lines up. So I'm just going to position my purple tape here, and I'm going to run all 3 of those through. And that's going to give me the tree effect all the way down to the bottom with the snowy banks. So you'll see that here in a second. So you'll see now that lines up perfectly with the tree. I'm going to go ahead and do the other 2, and all 3 of those will line up perfectly now. So now that I've got all of those cut, I decided I wanted to add a little snowy edge at the very top of each of these. So I'm using my Letter It Medium tool, which is just a clear embossing ink. And I'm going to go ahead and just run that right along the top of that stitch line. I want to keep a little bit of effect of the stitch line there. So I'm using my textured white embossing powder from Lawn Fawn. And this has a nice thick texture to it. It actually looks like snow. So I'm going to just go ahead and draw that line on the top of each of those borders, sprinkle on some embossing powder, tap away the excess, and you can clean it off any excess you have with a little brush. And then I'm going to put the rest of that back in the container and set that aside. Now what I'm going to do is use my heat tool, and I'm going to go ahead and emboss the tops of all those. And I don't know how well you can see it here, but it's going to give it a nice little textured edge. If you prefer, you could go a little further down with that edge. I just still wanted a little bit of that stitched edge to show. So that adds a little more dimension. So now that I have those ready, I'm going to go grab my stamps from the Winter Village set from Lawn Fawn, and I want the 3 houses, that little house, that one, the 2 trees, and 2 of the lampposts. And I have the matching dies as well. And then from this set, this is the Happy Village set, and from this set I want the little birds and the little smoke coming from the chimney. And again, the matching dies. And then from here, this is the Oh What Fun stamp set, and I want the little guy in the sleigh and the matching die. So I've taken my Misty out, and I'm going to position some Strathmore Bristol Smooth paper on there. And I also wanted to point out that I also went back and grabbed the trio of hearts from that set, and I'm going to stamp those as well. I'm using my VersaFine Onyx black ink, and I'm going to ink all of those up at once. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp those. And what I need is one more of the little lampposts, so I'm going to quickly place that back in there and stamp that as well. So we're going to start coloring with cobalt blue and Persian blue, and these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens. And we're also going to use the water brush, the Tim Holtz Detailer Tip water brush. So I'm just getting a little scrap paper there so we can clean off our little brushes as we go along. And here I'm going to start with the lightest color, and I'm going to bring it in just a little ways into the sleigh there. And then I'm going to come in with that darker color, and I'm just going to do a little bit along the edges. Then what I'm going to do is take that water brush, I'm cleaning it off there just to make sure there's no ink on it from a prior project, and I'm going to just pull that darker color into the lighter color. I'm cleaning it off again. I did notice my brush was getting very wet, so you can clean it off on a paper towel here like I'm doing here, just to kind of dry it off a little bit. And then even at the end, if you feel like it's still got a little wet, you can dab off a little bit of the ink there. Okay, so now I'm going to take the wine red, and I'm going to color in his little cap there. I'm just coloring the bottom to give it a little shadow and along few little areas of the little jacket. And then I'm going to take the light pink, and I'm going to just pull that color in. Since this image is so small, I decided I would use the other markers to pull in the color. The water was getting a little wet, and it was on a small image, it gets a little hard to blend them without getting too much bleeding. So I'm using the marker in a lighter tone, and I'm just going to pull the color in that way. I'm cleaning off my brush to make sure I don't transfer that ink to something else. And then I'm going to use the May Green, and I'm going to go ahead and color in his little scarf here. I'm not going to do any blending here. I'm just going to pull that in because later I'm going to use the gel pen there. And then I'm using the Oatmeal, which is a very light brown tan color. I'm going to do the little bear in that color. Then I'm going to take the dark brown, and I'm just going to do a little shadowing there, just a little down here in the corner and along his cap. And I'm going back to the lighter brown, and I'm going to pull those two colors together. Really quickly, really easily. I'm not going to spend a lot of time fussing on this. Cleaning off my brush. And now I'm going to go ahead and color in his little paw there, doing the same thing with the darker color. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the black, and I'm going to use that on the top of the sleigh there. So I'm taking the black, and I'm going to put it kind of on the two ends and just try to pull that in towards the center a little bit. And to do that, I'm going to use the light gray. I'm just going to blend those two colors together here. And that looks pretty good there. But now I want to do the little belt. I decided to do the little belt in black as well. And just blend that the same way I did the top of the sleigh there. And now I'm going to take the bright yellow. I'm going to do the bottom of the sleigh here. Now I'm going to take light pink and wine red. I'm going to do this little house starting with the light pink, and again going kind of under that roof line with the darker red, and I'm going to pull those two colors together. So I'm just going to continue on with the coloring here. So I'm going to continue to color that in. And then I'm going to go to the next color, which is the mustard. I'm going to do the door in the mustard. And I'm also going to use that on the roof as well. And I'm going to take a darker brown, the mid brown, and do my shadowing. We'll do a little shadowing on the door as well. Now I'm going to take the yellow and I'm going to do all the little windows here. I'm just going to do them all while I have that in my hand. And then I'm also going to do the lanterns. I do think the lanterns need a little bit more of an orangey color, so I'm going to use the scarlet red and blend those two colors together. Just down at the base of the lantern there, just to give it a little bit more of the effect of like a light or a flame. And I'm cleaning off the pen just to make sure I don't pull in too much of that red color up to the top of the lantern. So now that I have those done, I'm going to take the peacock blue and the dull blue, which is a light and a dark, and I'm going to do the house, this little house here. In the end, I kind of did decide this house got a little bit dark, but you'll see that I used the darker blue to create the shadows here. But then I decided, I thought it was just going to get too dark. So you'll see here that I grab a lighter color. I decide to take the light blue and use that to blend with, just to lighten it up. I just didn't want it to get any darker. And they all blend together fine, so in the end it was good. But I did lighten that up a little. And at the very end of this video, you'll see that I did a second card because I wanted to change the colors a little bit. And you'll see on the second card, the blue house is much lighter, and I did kind of prefer that. So maybe I would have used that medium blue and the light blue rather than the darkest one here, but it worked out well. So now I'm going to use the geranium red and do a nice red front door. And I'm going to just do the chimney top there. And then I decided to take, since the house was so dark, I thought the red door was a little bright. So I decided to take the black, just to pull in a little bit of the black color, just to kind of balance out the house a little bit. So I'm going to just pull that color with the red up into the chimney there, and just keep cleaning off my brush so I don't drag too much of the black up through there. Like I say, that it was a little darker, but I did kind of want to tone down the red door a little bit. And you can pull color off too. You see there I'm pulling some of the black off. I'm just going over it and pulling it, putting it on the scrap paper and pulling some more off. So that's easy to do. I'm using the light gray here to do the roof. And you can also use your water brush. If you feel that something got too dark, you could take your water brush, and I'm using a gray here to do the blending and the shadowing, but you could take a water brush and just use that to start pulling some color off. Just wet it and dab off some color onto your scrap paper and do it again. You can always take a little paper towel and blot up some of the color. So you have a lot of options. Don't just give up on it. I usually just try to make it work if I can. I mean, unless it's terrible and it's not fixable, but almost everything can be fixed. So just stick with it. On this next one, I'm going to go back to the geranium red here. And I'm going to do my little hearts, my 3 little hearts. I'm not going to bother shadowing these at all. I'm just going to color those in because later I'm going to go over those with some sparkle pen. I'm going to take the mid brown. I'm going to do the little base of the trees here. I'm going to take the May green and the deep green, and I'm going to go ahead and color those in. I'm going to color the whole thing in with the May green. And do a little bit of shadowing with the darker green there. And later you'll see we're going to add a little snowy effect to these. So I'm not going to be real fussy with my blending here because some of it's going to get covered anyway when we add the little snow. So I'm just pulling it down, cleaning off my brush because it was getting a little dark. And I went ahead and did the second tree the exact same way. So here we have the light blue and the turquoise green. And these two blend together beautifully. I love these two together. I use this combination a lot. So I'm going to start off with the lighter color here. And I'm going to go ahead and take that darker one and I'm going to start adding my shadows. If you haven't used these Zig markers, they're water-based marker. So again, you can do really nice blending and shading with them. They're very forgiving, and what I love is the tip on it is so fine that it's so detailed. You can get into any of these little small areas here without any problem at all. And they don't seem to be like overly wet. And now I'm using the light gray to do the roof. They don't seem to be like too wet, and especially on these small images. And there I'm going to use the gray. On these small images, you don't want it to get overly wet because sometimes they're so close together and so small, it's hard to not have the bleeding. But I don't find that with these at all. You get a really nice blend. Now the next one, I'm going to go ahead and take the scarlet red and bright yellow. I'm going to start with the bright yellow. And again, shadowing with the scarlet red. And blending those two together. And as I said before, if you get too much ink or it bleeds a little bit, just take your water brush, pick up some of the color. You can dab it off a little bit with a paper towel. There you see me fixing a little bit of bleeding into the window there. So I just went back with the yellow and spread it out. Now I'm going to take the beige, do the front door there, and I'm going to do the roof on this one with that same color. I'm going to take the mid brown and do my shadowing. And if this is too long, the coloring here, just fast forward to the end and, you pretty much know what to do here. But if you want to know what colors I used, here I'm going to use olive green and mid green. I thought I would include this part because sometimes people wonder what colors to use to blend together. And I thought there were a lot of interesting combinations here. You really can make almost anything work, but some of these combinations work really well together. So that gives you a little bit more of an olivey green type of effect there. And then I'm going to take the pale pink and do that front door. And back to the geranium red, because I forgot to do my little chimney there. Oh, actually both of my little chimneys. and then the pale pink to blend those two together. I'm going to go back with the geranium red and do my front door and blend that out. And now I just want to shadow that little bit of smoke there with some light gray, just a little tiny. I didn't even bother blending it. It's so small. Now I'm going to take that Jelly Roll pen, as I told you before. I'm going to go ahead and just do some highlighting here with that gel pen, just to make this pop a little bit more. Not much, just a little bit. You can skip this part if you don't want to do all of that. And then I decided to do a little bit on the houses as well, and the roof line there. Not much, just a little touch. Sometimes it makes it pop just a little bit more. You could see that there, and a little on the trees, but again, I'm going to be adding some snowy effect to the trees anyway. And the lampposts and hearts. Now I'm going to go ahead and I attached all the dies using the purple tape, and I'm going to run those through my Spellbinders Platinum machine. I've got everything die cut. Now I'm going to take my Letter It medium pen, which is a pen that has embossing ink in it, and I'm going to run that pen along the top of each of the snowy areas on the houses. And I'm just going to brush away any excess that I get. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of that to the trees. So that's that snowy effect I was talking about. This is that textured embossing powder from Lawn Fawn. It's textured white, and I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle that on, just the same that we used on the snowy borders before. Now I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to heat set all of those, and it's going to give a nice kind of bumpy texture. And you'll see that. I don't know how well you can see it on camera, but it is there, and it does add a nice little effect. So now what I want to do is take my Salty Ocean Distress Oxide ink and my foam applicator tool from Tim Holtz, and I'm just going to go ahead and rub some of that ink around the edges of that tree. I just want to create a little bit of a shadow, a little bit of, I don't know, interest. So I don't need to go all the way down because my little snowy banks come up, you know, about a third of the way. So I'm just going to do that, and I'm just trying to gently blend it out, picking up the ink from my glass mat there and kind of pulling it in. If you need to, just dab that ink off to the side and then pick it up. If you feel that going right onto the paper is too dark, just dab it on your glass mat and then start pulling it in. And I'm going to continue to go around, again, the whole thing, down towards the bottom. And again, I have that snowy border, so I don't need to worry about the very bottom there. And it just adds a little bit more dimension. And you could see that there. I'm going to clean that up. And then what I want to do is make sure everything looks good there. So I'm going to go ahead and attach that first border. And I don't want to put any glue up at the very top. The reason is I don't know where my little houses are going to go yet. So I want to make sure I can tuck them in underneath there. So it'll be plenty secure without putting any glue up top there. And that way, like I say, I can go ahead and put my images in there when I'm ready. Now this second set, I'm going to glue the first and the second piece together here. Again, not gluing up at the top of the border. And then for attaching those two, I'm going to add some foam mounting tape. And we're just going to put a strip of it along the bottom and attach that. I just really want the one layer of pop-up or one layer of dimension here, because I do still have to put the the frame up over top of it. So here I'm just trying to figure out if that fits in there well, and that seems to look really good right there where that little curve is in the snowy bank there. I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on that and tuck that in place. I'm just putting an acrylic block on it to let it dry while I get prepared for the other pieces here. I think that house looks good right there, so I'm going to add a little bit of phone mounting tape to the top of it and then some glue at the bottom, and that's because I popped up that section of border there, so I want everything to line up. And then for this little pink house, I just want to make sure that it's going to show. So I'm just checking that here, placing my little pieces there to see where that house is going to look the best. And I think it'll show up well over there. So I'm going to go ahead, that looks pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and glue that in place. The next thing I want to do is put in my trees, and you can see how great that texture looks on those trees. It really does give them a really nice snowy effect. Now again, these are little details you could skip if you wanted to. Again, I'm putting a little photo mounting tape at the top and gluing the bottom because I do have that dimension there. And this one I'm just going to glue behind everything, so it's fine. And it's starting to come together. I love these little villages. You know, like I keep saying with Lawn Fawn, everything seems to work together so well. And up at the top, I wanted to add those little birds that I talked about before, and that's coming from that Happy Village set. These are great little birds to use on almost any project. It's a nice little filler. I had a lot of open space up there at the top, and I thought the birds would look really cute. So I'm just inking them up with that black VersaFine Onyx black ink pad, and I'm going to stamp those there. I forgot to put my little lamp posts in, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Just tucking one in the front there. And again, you can keep checking your scene to make sure that everything looks good from the front, but I think that'll be fine there. And then I want to put the little smoke coming out of the chimney, and I thought I would pop that up a little bit since that house is popped up. And I've got that positioned in place there, so that looks good. So now I want to just put a little sentiment there on the front of the card, and I'm going to use the Happy Holidays from the Say What Miss Critters set. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that on an acrylic block. Now if you wanted to, you could put this in your MISTI, but I thought it was pretty simple stamping, so I'm just going to go ahead and ink that up and stamp it. I'm going to put it a little down towards the bottom because I want to put those little hearts up above it later, so I want to leave some room for that. Just going to clean that off, and then I want to just see how that looks, and then I'm going to take some photo mounting tape and place it across the bottom there. I realize you'll see later on that I should put a little piece of mounting tape up on the top of that hill, just so that as it goes through the mail it won't get kind of like crushed. So here I'm putting some photo mounting tape, so this will give me another layer of dimension here. But I also need to put 2 layers of the mounting tape up at the very top since it's already popped up. So you'll see here that I add another little piece of mounting tape to that very top. And that lines everything up nice and flat. So now we have both of these pieces, and I'm going to take my, I don't know if you could see that well here, but my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. It's hard to see, and it is in the crystal clear. And these make beautiful sparkly effect on your images. I'm going to put a little in each of those windows. It will be hard for you to see on camera, but it really adds a lot to it. And if you're changing colors, you'll see there I didn't clean it off, and I got a little bit of the yellow on my little smoke there. So I'm just picking it up, cleaning it off, and moving that ink off to the side. And it looks fine, so I'm not worried about it. I added a little to the trees, and I'm going to add a little bit to his cap here, and a little bit to the bottom of the sleigh. And as I said earlier, I wanted to take the gel pen and add a little bit of dots, little polka dots to his scarf there. I'm taking the light pink, and I decided to add a little bit of a rosy pink cheek there for him. So now I'm going to go ahead and take those 3 hearts that we cut out earlier, and I'm going to pop those onto the card. I'm just cutting one of them off because I didn't want it to extend above the snowbank. So I'm just going to cut that down so that they all 3 fit right there. And I'm going to glue those in place. So I'm going to glue those down. As I was gluing these down, I realized that I should have probably placed another little piece of mounting tape behind there, just so again it wouldn't get crushed going through the mail. So I just pull that up a little bit and slide that piece of mounting tape right in there. I'm adding the Spectrum Noir sparkle pen to those as well. And that looks pretty cute. So now I want to add a star to the top of the tree. So I'm going to cut that out of the Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I cut 2 of them. I'm going to glue those 2 together. I just wanted to make that star a little bit more, a little thicker, have a little bit more weight to it. So I'm just gluing those 2 pieces together and letting those dry. And then I'm going to come in with the yellow pen and color that whole thing in. And now I'm going to go back with the sparkle pen and add that sparkle to the entire little star. And that came out really cute. I really liked how that looked. And I'm going to position that right at the top of the tree there with a little bit of photo mounting tape. Adding a little more sparkle, of course. Any excuse to add sparkle is a good one. And now I'm going to go ahead, and to position this on my card, what I'm doing is I'm lining the 2 up. So I'm going to put some glue on the back of the tree, and I'm not using tape here because I want to be able to move it around a little bit. So this way I can move it and position it if it's not just right when I lay it down, which tape wouldn't really allow me to do that. So I'm making sure that it's fully lined up behind that frame. And once I feel that it's positioned correctly, I'm going to lay it down. I'm just going to lay it down on the card. I have no glue on the frame part yet, just on the tree. So I'm going to lay that down, and then I'm going to just make sure it looks good, and I have a few seconds here, a few minutes here to move it around just to make sure it's exactly where I wanted it, and that looks pretty good. It's really easy to do. And then I'm going to go ahead and take some photo mounting tape. I do want to pop this up since the snowbank underneath is popped up. I have to pop this up to match the height of the snowbank underneath. So I'm just doing one layer. I put photo mounting tape, a nice bit of it all around. I'm using this little brush that I got from Nuvo. It's a surface sweep brush and it's really great for cleaning off the surface. And here I had gotten some lint on the acetate, and it's really soft and it doesn't scratch anything, and it brushed that right off. So I think I'll be using that a lot, cleaning off my surface and my cards. So there you can see I'm lining that up and I'm just pressing that into place, and that looks really good. I'm real happy with that. And so my card opens easily, and I can put a sentiment inside or whatever I want to do there. I haven't decided yet on this one. So you can see that beautiful acetate window there. Now you could make this into a shaker card as well. I decided not to, but you certainly could. And you can see there all the detail. You can see a little bit of the sparkle there and the little snow on the banks. So there you have it. That's my Christmas tree winter scene. So here's the finished card. I hope you had fun today. If you liked the video, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me again at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. And this second picture here is another card where I colored the village in slightly differently, and I wanted you to see that. So I hope you enjoyed today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.